Eze Adi hurried over his breakfast of cassava served with cold bitter leaf soup. It was all that remained of last night's supper. Then he put away the bowls from which he and his mother had eaten and set off to the village of Amma, 3 miles away. Eze was going to school for the first time. That morning, Eze had woken at the first crow of the cockerel, which slept in the coop at the far end of the hut. His mother lit a clay oil lamp as he raised himself drowsily from his sleeping mat and rolled it up. He reached for his chewing stick as he went out to sweep in the yard. In the grey light of dawn, the hamlet of Ohia was silent. But before he had finished his work, he could see dim figures moving busily from hut to hut. Farmers were setting off to their fields. Young girls were going out to fetch water with great clay pots balanced on their heads, and the women were beginning their cooking on crackling wood fires. Eze and his sister Ulu collected their water pots and joined a crowd of their friends on the way to the stream. Others met them, asking each other, "I hope you slept well." After a bath and a swim, Eze and Ulu filled their water pots and climbed the slope of the river valley towards home. On their way, they met their father, Okonkwo Adi, with a great hoe over his left shoulder. He was walking to his farm over 5 miles away, where he was going to dig yams. "Good luck at school, Eze," he said. When Eze and Ulu reached home, they found that their mother had almost finished her housework and was beginning to fill her basket with things to take to the market. She had decided that if she had to make the long journey to Amma with Eze, she might just as well try to sell some of the yams her husband had grown. So she packed yams, corn cobs and palm nuts in one basket, and some palm kernels and African garden eggs, melon, bitter leaf and water leaf into a smaller basket which Eze would carry. With the money she made from these, she intended to buy salt, meat, rice and cassava flour for her family. From under his father's pillow, Eze took out his brand new school uniform, a white shirt and a pair of brown shorts. His mother wrapped them in a clean cloth and put them into her basket. When they were ready to begin their journey, Eze's mother helped him to lift onto his head the basket of vegetables which he was to take to the market. His mother took up her long basket and together they set out for Amma. Eze and his mother passed through Ohia, which stood on the gentle slope of some hilly ground. The houses were built haphazardly amongst the surrounding trees. They were close to one another and faced any direction the builders chose. Paths wound in and out between them in the most confusing manner, but few outsiders ever came to Ohia and none of them complained. Trees grew everywhere. Many were fruit trees. Only a few were meant to provide shade. Eze and his mother crossed the main square, a sandy strip of open ground planted with shade trees, and followed a narrow path through the trees beyond. The path passed the other hamlets, separated from each other by stretches of bush and farmland. They met other women and girls on their way to the markets. Each newcomer exchanged greetings with Eze and his mother. As they walked on, the women chatted and laughed. The countryside rang with their voices as they broke into a song. Somehow, it made light of their heavy burden of country produce and made them forget their distance to the markets. Except for a few who were known to each other, all the girls trudged on in silence. Eze, apart from being naturally a quiet boy, would never talk to strangers. He closed his lips even tighter when first he noticed there were no other boys in their group. He could never talk to girls. In Ohio hamlets, boys regarded themselves as superior to girls, so Eze kept his distance from them. Already, the weight of his load and strain of the journey were beginning to tell on him. His neck was bent, and his steps became shorter. There was nothing to divert his mind from the burden on his head and the distance yet to be covered. But Eze, at 7 years of age, had the courage of a boy of 10. Although his courage was nothing compared to that of the women and girls who had done this journey several times before. But he did not make a fuss. His father had taught him that he must learn to bear his burdens without complaints, and that he must never let any woman know when he was suffering. So Eze, apart from fearing that the women, and more especially the girls, would laugh at him if he complained, was trying to be as grown up as a young boy who was going to school for the first time ought to be. Eze's mother soon noticed that he was getting tired. As they were going up on the hill, which was the last lap of the journey, she pointed out some of the landmarks. "When we go past that large mango tree there," she said, "and come to that cluster of palm trees, we shall be able to see Ama. It is quite close now, so let's keep going." The woman walking behind them asked what was the matter. "My brave boy," explained Eze's mother. "He has never been to Ama before. I am afraid he's beginning to feel tired." "That's how it always is," the woman said sympathetically. "When one makes a journey for the first time, a mile seems like two seems like four, and so on. Persevere, my son. We are almost there." They got to the cluster of palm trees, which stood on the top of the ridge. Below them, Ama spread out. A beautiful sight. The morning sun lent color to the full green trees, the grey thatch of the roofs, and the bright red mud walls. Clumps of palm trees clustered between the houses and showed that nature had been kind to the people of this village. However, Eze saw nothing beautiful about Ama. Indeed, what he saw made him speak for the first time. "Mother," he said, "Ama looks just like our own hamlet." "Yes, my son," she answered, "except that it is much bigger. You cannot see all the houses from here. Most of them are hidden under those big trees." Eze remembered what had brought him to Ama, the school, and he asked his mother where it was. "It is along the road there," she answered, pointing it out to him. "The open space, farther on, where you can see a few people, is the marketplace." They went down the hill slowly, passed by the school compound, and made for the marketplace. At the market, they put down their loads and stretched themselves. "Now you can put on your clothes and I'll take you to school," his mother said. "Are you hungry after the journey?" "No, mother," Eze answered, for his excitement about the new school was so great that the last thing he wanted to do was eat. His mother untied the clean cloth, which was wrapped around his clothes, and gave them to him. When he put them on, they were a little too large for him. They had been bought ready-made for him by his father, who knew that Eze would soon grow out of them if they fitted too well from the start. The other women admired Eze's new clothes. "He's going to school," his mother informed them, adding unhappily, "It's his father's idea, not mine." "Going to school?" the other women exclaimed. "Are you mad? His father's idea, and you did not stop it?" In those days, no boy in Oya hamlet went to school. The villagers, who were all farmers, had no use for education. It did not teach a boy to plant yams, to build house, to cut down trees, or even do the traditional dances. The school at Ama. Eze's mother followed him as far as the gate and watched him go timidly into the school compound. She felt almost as frightened as he did. He stood under a mango tree and looked around. The school compound was not very much larger than the main square in his own hamlet. It was fenced around with rough sticks. In the center of the compound was the school itself, which was not much bigger than his father's house. It had low mud walls from which pillars rose to support the thatched roof that was going brown with dust and sagged badly in places. To his right, Eze saw another building, the schoolmaster's house. It was painted a brilliant white and shone in the morning sun. Like the schoolhouse, it was roofed with palm leaf mats. The other building on his left was the rest house, where the missionaries who ran the school could sleep when they came to Amma. The ground had patches of banana grass growing on it. The flower beds were marked out, but no work had been done on them, for it was still the dry season. Eze did not really understand any of the things he had seen, but he waited patiently for something to happen. Then he noticed a crowd of boys arriving, but he only saw one girl. Then a man came out of the white painted house. He went to one end of the school, took from the roof an iron rod the length of a foot roll, and picked a heavy piece of railway line with a ring fixed to one end. He held it by the ring and beat it with the iron rod. This was the school bell. As he rang it, some Amma village boys who had been to school before began singing in time with the bell. "Boys, girls, come to school! Boy, girls, come to school!" They sang until he put down the bell. Then he clapped his hands and beckoned to the children to come to him. When they had flocked around him, he said, "Come with me into the school." He turned and they followed him. Inside the schoolroom, he knelt down and they knelt after him. "Close your eyes and let us pray," he said, and they obeyed. Only one boy kept his eyes open. That was Eze. He did not understand why he should close his eyes when he prayed. He had never seen any of his people close their eyes when they prayed or when they made offerings to the good spirits that looked after their village. After praying, the children were divided into two groups. One group sprinkled water on the floor of the schoolhouse and the other swept it. Eze did not like this. Sweeping the inside of the house was a girl's job. Still, he obeyed. For his father had taught him to obey people older than himself, and this man was old enough to be his father. When the sweeping was over, the man brought a bundle of straw mats from the white painted house. He spread them on the floor and asked the children to sit down. When they were all seated, he began to sing a local song. Soon, they all joined him. Singing lustily, at the end of the song, the children were beginning to feel more at ease. They liked the man. Just as Eze was wondering who the man was, he spoke. "Would you like to know my name?" he asked. "Yes," they answered in chorus. "I am Mr. Okafor," he said impressively. "I am the schoolmaster. I am your friend." He paused to let this sink in. Then he asked, "What is my name?" "Mr. Okafor," they answered timidly. "Do not fear," he told them. "As long as you are all good, I will not beat you. Say it again and shout it this time. Mr. Okafor," they shouted. "Again," he ordered. "Mr. Okafor. But you must not call me Mr. Okafor when you talk to people about me. You must call me teacher." "Teacher," they all shouted. Again. "Teacher." Again. "Teacher." "Do you know why I keep on asking you to repeat these things?" One boy said he knew. "It is because when you say a thing again and again, even the deaf will hear." He used one of his own people's sayings to answer the question. "Why must you not call me by my name when you speak to me?" the teacher asked. Eze thought he ought to try to get into the teacher's good books as early as possible. One boy had beaten him to the first question, Now he had to beat him to this one. It is because we are not equal, he said. You are senior to us, and my father told me you are very wise. Now, each of you must tell me his name, said Mr. Okafor. As they did, one after another, he wrote their names in a book. Now, I want you to listen. When you hear your name, you must answer present, sir. Do you understand? Yes, they all shouted. The school was a new one. When the missionaries who were proprietors of the school invited the elders of Ama village and the hamlets around it, including Ohia, to discuss the probability of establishing a school for them, they had refused to attend the meeting. They did not want a school. It would only lead to a waste of future farm hands. What use on a farm is a man who cannot read and write? They asked. Ohia, in particular, had plenty of farmland, but it was land that was not very fertile. So its people had to work extremely hard to get any crops at all. They had no industries, though all the women did a little trading. So land meant everything to them. Their whole life, their religion, their customs, their livelihood was based on it. But many of their people who had left the hamlets for larger towns had seen a different kind of life because they could not read or write. They soon found they could not get good jobs. They were employed only as farmhands, laborers, and load carriers. It was too late for them to go back to school. But was it too late for their children? They sent letters to the missionaries near Amma, begging them to establish a school for their people. They said they had realized the importance of education and how badly they needed a school for their children at home. Because of these letters, the missionaries built the school at Amma. But the old men still did not like it and did all they could to stop members of their families attending it. Mr. Okafor, who was appointed the school's first teacher, was a native of Ako, a village 15 miles from Amma. He was a huge man, 30 years old and a lover of children. Unlike some of the villagers who had several wives, he had only one wife, for he was a strict Christian. He had 3 young children of his own. Mr. Okafor was not a trained teacher. He did not follow any standard teaching methods, yet his boys always did well in examinations because his methods, however unorthodox, sought to bring out the best pupils. Mr. Okafor's salary was very small, and although he paid no rent on his house and his wife did all the washing, he found it difficult to maintain a family of 5. But he had a large farm in which he planted yams and vegetables, and in which the school children sometimes helped him.